someone is pressing backspace on his text editor as he codes. He hears his wife's shrieks. And when he turns, what he saw next made no sense. Namaskaram, listeners. Nishta Jeeva here. Tonight's story is called Good Riddance, Mr. Product Manager. Our story today is about Surendar. Surendar works in Hyderabad. His office is on the second highest floor in one of the glass buildings in the much glorified Dallas Center. Surendar is burdened with several things in life, be it taking care of the demands of his wife as she enters her third trimester, finishing up a project due next month that his supervisor would then present to his superiors in the USA head office, and most importantly, his supervisor Vivek himself, who makes life miserable enough for him. Vivek is not the typical pushy middle manager. Actually, scratch that. He is that and more. Surendar noticed this every time the American Goras from the Dallas main office come to Hyderabad to meet the India team. He acts like them, talks like them, the put-on accent coming through even though he's never been there. Even took up the penchant for small talk, which he felt never went anywhere. Feels professional, but not, if you get what I mean. At the same time, he's the type to still add the team members on WhatsApp and inquire about progress beyond office hours, even on holidays. What happened to the update, Surendar? Is a text that he dreads to read every day. Coming back to our main man, Surendar. You see, he's been stuck on the software developer 2 role for a while. He would want to ask him to get allocated to a different, less strenuous project because of his wife's pregnancy. He knows Vivek would smilingly agree, but botch his appraisal, which is due in 2 months' time. He could really use the promotion, he thought. So he's been crunching along for sleepless nights because Vivek, be it Indian holiday or American holiday, would ask to make a deliverable on WhatsApp, if available. What happened to the update, Surendar? Surendar, as usual, volunteers to do it. A couple of years ago, he would have sworn Vivek had made a variant of his code and pushed that to production at a critical time to ultimately bag the product manager role, and now ultimately enjoys to not code and push that work onto people like him. But he had no evidence then. Surendar feels sorry for himself from time to time for his self-shackled chains. Add to that a heavy dose of denialism. If he now just endures the crunch time and gives Vivek what he wants, Vivek could then get the hell out with an L1 visa to the Dallas main office and leave him alone. He always fantasizes that if he were ever put in a self-defense situation, he would slow choke Vivek to death. In a self-defense situation, he used to repeat to himself. Then it would be good riddance, Mr. Product Manager, he would think. On this night, Surendar was back in office after hours. He had taken a break to get his wife for a doctor checkup. He had asked Vivek whether he could work from home, but it seems the office VPN is down and it would take IT some time to get to it. It would be great if you could make it to the office, Vivek would say. And like always, Surendar would volunteer to do it. Tonight, there was not a single soul in the office. Even the night guard seemed to be away. Surendar uses his keycard to get in. His weariness is worsened by the fact that the office also feels like an extension of Vivek, aping the US dreamland on the surface level, by being a tall glass building, but incinerates its Indian workers inside by trapping the sunny Indian heat. Surendar gets busy working away before it is dinner time. But there is no dinner since there was no time to prepare, given his wife's doctor visits. He just dozes off on his desk for a while. Surendar is met with some disturbing dream. A recurring dream in which someone is pressing backspace on his text editor as he codes, only to immediately have his WhatsApp notifications from Vivek blaring on. What happened to the update, Surendar? What happened to the update, Surendar? What happened to the update, Surendar? He tries to ignore his WhatsApp and tries to crunch through. He hears his wife's shrieks, and when he turns, he sees his very pregnant wife at the entrance to his office, crying that she was trying to reach him. He notices the water breaking from between her two standing legs. He gets up from his chair, and also his nightmare. He wakes up, having felt the sense of someone entering the empty office space. He is uneasy. He has been feeling this for some night outs at work, but resumes his sleep in the seemingly comfy cubicle. No dreams this time. Good. He needed this. And then he feels someone breathing on his neck. Surendar is now jolted awake. He is uneasy. He looks around the dark office space. He even calls, "Security!" But no response. He drinks some water, switches on the keyboard backlight display, and decides to get back to work. He sits down to find his office chair wobbly, as if some screws got loose. He feels even more uneasy. Tries to focus on his task. He makes some notes and scratches them off. He instinctively throws the paper toward the trash bin, only to find it shifted slightly to the right, a foot farther. He calms himself down from getting into a rage-filled outburst. He sets the trash bin in its right place. He is then greeted to a light from one of the other cubicles. He is even more uneasy. He gets up. The light is 2 cubicles away. He silently trudges toward, only to find a laptop on the cubicle desk, come out of sleep mode and display a login screen. Weird, but nothing out of the ordinary, he thought. He went back to his cubicle to sit down, but the floor greets him as his chair breaks down because of loose screws. He gets up instantly and, in a disturbed rage, goes over to the light switches in the office space. Heavy breathing ensues. No one there. He's even more uneasy. Someone is messing with him? No. He probably just needs some rest, right? Probably, he thought. Surendar makes the conscious decision to go home. He goes to his cubicle to fetch his bag. His eyes follow a discrepancy. The trash bin is even further away. He storms toward the trash bin, picks it up, and tries to hurtle it toward those darned glass windows before composing himself. Yes, pranayama is good for him. He controls his breathing, only to hear the sound of footsteps scurrying away. He is visibly startled. He makes a slow, circumferential patrol of the space before deciding to go to the security room where the camera feeds are shown. He finds no one stationed there. The guard, probably loitering away at the vending machines in the ground floor. After a few brief minutes, he's able to zero in on the camera feed for his office space. He keeps watching, barely blinking. What he saw next made no sense. You see, every cubicle had a desk and some drawers, including some relatively larger ones to hold files. And out from one of them emerged a midget, its head scanning about, and then slowly treading toward the restrooms. I guess we've now crossed the bar limit on the uneasiness scale. Surendar is flabbergasted. He couldn't believe his eyes. He calls out for the guard again. He had half a mind to go down to the ground floor and hopefully find some guards, but the thought of spending time in empty elevators in the dead of night played into his reluctance. Besides, he could always point back to the recorded tapes, right? He goes back to his office. He seems to investigate the open drawer. It's an open drawer, all right, but nothing in there. All Surendar had to do was take his bag and go home. That's when he gets the barrage of WhatsApp messages. It's Vivek. demanding the status updates. After a sigh, he decides to stay, but he wanted to make sure the bathroom was clear. Surendar doesn't know whether the midget went into the men's or ladies' restroom. There are no cameras pointed to the entrance of these. He goes very silently inside the men's first. All stalls were already open and nothing in them. Next, he looks very reluctantly in the ladies' restroom. He finds one stall somewhat closed, but silently pushes the door open to find a closed potty seat. Odd, but he weaves a sigh of relief. Surendar feels his phone vibrate. 3 messages from Vivek. First one read, "We have a release due this weekend. Why haven't you made sure the build was tested yet?" Second one read, "Sorry about the messages at this time. Finally scheduled date for your performance review with boss. Max exposure on this release. Smile emoji." And the third, "You know it's unprofessional to not respond to status inquiries?" Now, before Surendar could fully torture himself by digesting those messages, he hears a silent giggle coming from up above. The entirety of the office space, including the restrooms, have a false ceiling with the typical grid and tile arrangement. Surendar exhales and then he notices the giggle suddenly stop. He looks at the closed toilet seat, steps on it, and then steps on the flush cover. He slowly pushes aside the PVC tile and pokes his head above the aluminium T-grid of the false ceiling. And as he shone the light of the cell phone torch, there he was. A small dwarf-like human sitting on another tile of the false ceiling, complete with a laptop setup, some cables, probably a modem, and some other devices in that constrained space where only he could fit in. The midget frantically tries to get up and move away. Surendar shouts in fear and anger, holding the T-grid and violently trying to shake it. The midget swiftly wobbles to another tile, offsetting it from the grid. The midget falls through the ceiling along with the laptops, cables, and other devices. Surendar trips and falls as well. Luckily, he doesn't break his own face. Surendar gets up and notices the midget has fallen face first and thus hidden from view. He is covered in a pile of cables, a landline phone, a modem, and a laptop, all damaged to some extent. He dusts himself and decides to get out of the situation and alert somebody. He crawls toward the exit to feel a sudden choking. A yellow wire appears in front of his face and settles onto his neck. Surendar is quickly brought down by a choking force. He falls to the ground but reflexively tries to get up. He feels 2 little feet settle on his back. The midget was perched there, pulling at him with an intent to clearly harm him. Surendar shakes vehemently and tries to pull at the LAN cable. He can feel the cable sink into his neck. He was running out of energy and breath. He then hears from behind him, "What happened to the update, Surendar?" A pang of shock goes into Surendar, and he starts to hurtle toward the restroom wall, violently shaking and hitting the midget perched on his back onto it. Now the both of them are in front of the restroom mirror. His eyes fall on the mirror and are able to take in details of the face behind. It looked familiar. "What happened to the update, Surendar?" the midget menacingly shrieks. Surendar mustered some strength and keeps slamming the both of them against the wall. The midget hits his head again and both collapse to the floor. Surendar turns around, trying to confirm what he saw in the mirror. The midget had the face of Vivek, his supervisor. But Vivek wasn't a midget, but it was him. Him all along, making his life hell, wrecking his sleep, his work, and the life beyond that stupid office, playing his Poltergeist games through WhatsApp, his office space, and through his laptop. As the dwarf lay unconscious and bleeding from the head, he takes note of the situation. Self-defense situation. He exclaims to himself, I'm in a self-defense situation. The midget is regaining his consciousness. Surendar has been waiting for this moment. He takes that LAN cable and sets to do what he always wanted to do. Surendar gets up with the LAN cable in his hands, tightly wrapped around the midget's neck, whose back is now stuck to his. The midget is profusely shaking, struggling to get out of the cable chokehold. Surendar hears some attempts at shrieking, but a tightening of the cable that turned into a the legs stopped to shake, and then eventually the hands. The body on his back felt immobile. Surendar was gasping for breath, but wanted to say, Update deployed. Now, Surendar couldn't even fathom the scene he got himself into. But even under insane levels of stress, he, as a software developer, had debugged all levels of anomalies. After washing his face, doing some pranayama, and ensuring the midget stayed dead, he sneaks into the security room again. He shuts down the program that the CCTV security system runs on before corrupting the hard drive on which the footage of the midget was first captured. He puts the midget in a trash bag, triple layers it, and dumps it in the giant office trash bin. He also dumps the broken laptop, modem, etc. in the other one. This trash bin had wheelers, so he could tilt it to a side and transport it around, which he did. He takes the bin to his car in the parking and empties the bag into his car. He first tries to dump the body in Durgam Charu, a lake nearby, but decides to take it to Hussain Sagar Lake instead, since that side of the city sleeps early. He finds a curve of Necklace Road that was unmonitored and is able to dump Vivek and his gear into the lake and heads home. Fast forward a few days, and it seems Surendar's life has turned a new leaf. Apparently, after that weird event, Vivek, his supervisor, seems to have been reported dead and murdered. His body was found at home, in bed, with marks around his neck as if strangulated. The police had detained his wife as prime suspect, with public sentiment in her favor, as the narrative is that of a woman finally snapping back at her psychotic husband. I wouldn't be surprised if that were true. Surendar would chuckle to himself. He has since stopped to wonder how killing that midget, the one with Vivek's face, had led to Vivek's actual death. He had destroyed all hardware evidence, so he couldn't know much either. And now he is to worry himself with his new responsibilities as a product manager, given that he has now replaced Vivek and promoted to that role. He treats his team members humanely and is also able to stick to deadlines with good planning. Tonight, he's there again in the office after hours, preparing a presentation. But this time, he is there because he wants to be there. You see, his wife is in her 8th month and in Surendar's eyes has become the most repulsive person he knows. Always demanding, always confrontational, never happy with improvements in life, always anxious, and is always urged to see him at peace. She's a neurotic, hormonal, pregnant mess. Any time away from her is golden time, even if he has to fake urgencies at office, Surendar would think. Surendar pauses to write down some ideas for a slide onto a scratch paper. He crumples it and throws it toward the little trash bin. The bin is not in its place, but further moved away. Surendar looks in that direction and in the distance notices a midget-sized person, hands on their hips, in a very familiar confrontational pose. The midget is wearing a simple sari. Surendar knew to immediately look at the face. It was his wife's face. The midget shows an angry but pained expression, and he notices the water breaking from between those legs. Surendar sighs. He takes out and wears a pair of rubber gloves and mutters to himself, "Here we go again."